So part of the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters came out today, so I thought it would be kind of a good idea to go in and check out how these things look, check how they play, and basically kind of do a first impression kind of thing here. It's no secret that I like the Final Fantasy games. If you just take a look at the channel, you'll see basically almost every single one. So the very first three that they have released is Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, which I'm actually pretty excited about. Final Fantasy 1 and 2 haven't actually been officially released on a PC up until this point. There was a PlayStation Portable version not too long ago. We're not going to compare the two. We're just going to give first impressions. We might give a comparison in my first impression, but regardless, on top of that, Final Fantasy 3, this is actually the first time this is being released in America as a 2D sprite. There was 3D versions. Both the PlayStation Portable and the DS and the Steam version were, and I just bumped the mic with my hat. Maybe I shouldn't wear this hat. There was a PSP version, Nintendo DS version, and a Steam version, but they're all in 3D and they're all the exact same version. So I'm pretty excited to check that out. So let's get into it right now. First thing I want to do is talk about the bonuses that you get for pre-ordering these games, or just getting them, because I didn't pre-order it and they still gave it to me. You basically get a couple of wallpapers. They look okay, I guess. I mean, there's nothing that's not already going to be available probably to the public already, because these things are going to get leaked online pretty easily. And you're also supposed to get the original soundtrack, but you get 3 bonuses of the soundtrack, and they're just like time-lapse remixes, which I don't know if they're actually the same as the actual in-game. Don't really know what the point of this. You're not getting much. You're only getting 3. And inside the actual game, you can actually listen to the actual soundtrack. So I don't know why you wouldn't just do that. There's even its own player, has its own animations and everything with the characters. Whatever though. Let's get into the actual game part of this. So all 3 of these games have a more updated sprites based on the original, and while some people I think aren't gonna like these because, oh, they're not the perfect what they used to be, I actually think they look pretty nice. You also have diagonal movement now for the first time ever, which is actually pretty nice as well. All 3 games have an auto battle mechanic, therefore you don't have to just keep mashing the same button over and over again. You can just hit one button, run around in circles, and grind for hours if you want. It's actually pretty nice. I really enjoyed that feature. All you have to do to turn this on is hit a single button, or you can go into settings to just have it on automatically. Apart from looking better, the music in this game is, oh my god, just way better. Instead of using the old soundtracks, they remade the old songs with actual instruments this time, and this makes this sound just absolutely amazing. If you loved the old Final Fantasy soundtracks, you're gonna love these ones, because my god, it's like an eargasm when I'm listening to them. All 3 of these games have an art gallery. You can see concept art, and you can even see what the main cover looked like. There are some oddities with all 3 games, however. I noticed right when I started they all opened up in windowed mode, which isn't a big deal. That's a quick, easy fix. Also noticed something strange within the settings, particularly with the music and master and sound effects. By default, your master volume is at 10, but your sound effects and music are set at 5. Can someone please tell me what the point of having the master volume at 10 if the other ones are at 5 is? I don't understand. I just went ahead and boosted them all up to 10. I didn't feel like that's a problem. I could just turn it down if it's too loud. You do get key mapping, which means you can make any button be anything you want, which I also really appreciate. Okay, so all 3 of these games are based off their NES versions, which in my opinion is great because I feel like this is the most original, most vanilla version of these games, but there is some extra content that was added in later releases that are not in this game as a result of that. This really hurts Final Fantasy 2 in particular, which has the Dawn of Souls, which is a completely new story arc, not in the game at all. It also kind of affects Final Fantasy 3. Every version of Final Fantasy 3 that's ever been released in the United States was not only 3D, but also had a new rearranged story, which really only affected the beginning of the game, but you know, it was appreciated. Okay, now I have to talk about the font, because this was a major focal point and major thing that people noticed when they first announced these things. Many people didn't like what the font looked like in the trailers, and I'm here to tell you that it's a mixed bag, I guess. When I'm naming my characters or just looking through the menus, I think the font is fine. The problem actually shows up when a character is talking, and to be honest with you, I didn't really have that much of a problem with it, but it is definitely too small. Like, there's a lot of text chat here that is just not being used for whatever reason. But when I'm sitting, you know, arm's length away from my monitor, and I'm invested in it again, I hardly even notice that the font is that small. I mean, yes, it still needs to be bigger. That's still a problem, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So all 3 games look tremendous, especially if you like this pixel art style. And I'm sure there's going to be someone out there to be like, oh, I'd prefer the PlayStation Portable style. And that's you, whatever. This is a higher resolution of these games, and I love them for it. They're more detailed. It's more better. There's more colors. It's great. One thing that I absolutely loved in all 3 of these games is that they added a mini map. Getting lost in town or in a dungeon? pull up the minimap. You can even make it bigger. This is great. I love the minimap. You might be wondering how something this small makes such a huge difference to me, but it really does. I can see exactly where each and every shop is. I can see what pathways I haven't taken. Now, something I didn't do inside Final Fantasy II is go into a dungeon and see if it actually indicates which doors have stuff in it and which doors don't. I'm going to assume it doesn't, since you have to load up a whole new area every time you go inside one of those doors. But hey, modders, get on this. This will make this game infinitely better. All right, so enough of that. Let's actually boot up these games individually, and let's boot up Final Fantasy 1. And yeah, this is definitely Final Fantasy 1. I don't know what you really want me to say. I feel like maybe the thief looks a little bit different for whatever reason, but apart from that, everything here is pretty much exactly the same, with better music, higher resolution, and pixel art. I do think maybe the intro might be a little bit longer, but you know, nothing really a problem with that. Based on the NES versions, they are back to doing spell charges instead of using magic points. I would say this is a pretty good version of Final Fantasy 1 and highly recommend it. So I booted up Final Fantasy 2. And I gotta say, I really like the art here. Firion's bandana looks amazing. A small minute detail, and being the most story-based out of the 3 games, is that when someone talks, not only does it tell you who's talking in the upper left-hand corner with their names, but they are also color-coded. I really appreciate that little detail. I'm guessing they added this because in the PlayStation Portable, every character had a portrait and that would actually show emotion, and they got rid of that being based on the NES versions. Now, I'm not actually sure if I recommend this one. Yes, it looks great. Yes, it's the highest resolution that we've ever had, but we're missing a lot of bonus content here. PlayStation Portable had a lot of stuff on it, and this game just does not have it at all. And finally, Final Fantasy 3, the very first time America has gotten a 2D version of this game and not the 3D remakes. And because of that, we actually have a slightly altered story. Instead of just one character going inside in the cave at the beginning of the game, we have all 4. And you remember that color code and the name detail that was in the second game? Yeah, they just got rid of that. I have no idea who's talking here. Not the end of the world, because Final Fantasy 3's story is really not much of a story and there's not much there, but I feel like it is something I would mention. I actually think Final Fantasy 3 is probably the coolest one overall, just because we've never had this version over here in the States. But if I recommend this, kind of comes up to your choice. Do you want a 3D graphics or do you want the sprites? It's kind of up to you. Now, before I just show up straight up gameplay of these games, I want to say that I'm actually pretty excited for the future here. Well, except for Final Fantasy 4's version. I'm not looking forward to that one because there's already 20 different versions and I don't know which one's gonna be the best. But if this is the kind of quality that we're going to get for the rest of the games, I'm pretty excited, especially for Final Fantasy 6. That fan favorite game has really been ripped off. I mean, 5 has as well, but I feel like 6 is more important. Final Fantasy 6 only has the original version, which I think is poorly translated, a fan-made version, and a fan-made script will always take some liberties with the script, a PlayStation 1 version which has to load a lot, a Game Boy Advance version where you can only run in 4 different directions and has horrible sound, or the old iOS/Steam version, which are now gone, thank God. These things were incredibly ugly and they were kind of clunky. Well, that's enough about me ranting on about this for a while. Let's actually look at pure unedited gameplay. Now, in this gameplay, I do mess with the settings a little bit, configurations, some things like that, just kind of exploring. Just thought I would give you a heads up on that. Let's start with the footage right now with Final Fantasy 1.